Clash of Communities 2022 of the Amazon Appstore is almost wrapping up. This event, featuring the communities from that of Final Fantasy Brave Exvius and War of Divisions, have collided in Final Fantasy Exvius universe. On September 10th at 6 p.m. PST, check out this livestream on Twitch, where the winners will be celebrated and some streamers will be there. Now, of course, this raises the question, what's Amazon Coins? Amazon Coin is a digital currency that is available through the Amazon Appstore where you can download your favorite games. You can purchase Amazon Coins to use it to get several items through the Amazon Appstore, which can let you save on apps, games, and in-app purchases. Now you might be wondering, why not just spend regular money? You see, Amazon Coins has a nice bonus added to it. The more you purchase, the greater the discount applied to the sale, so you potentially get more mileage out of the money you plan to spend. For example, if you'd like to get 50,000 Amazon Coins, it's normally at the price of $500. But Amazon Coins has its own discount applied to it, slashing the price down to $400 instead, a 20% discount. There are multiple packs of different discounts, so feel free to take a look and pick what appeals to you. In order to get access to Amazon Coins, you must be using the version of the game downloaded from the Amazon Appstore. So make sure your current account is bonded beforehand on your current version of the game. Then, after downloading the game from the Amazon Appstore, load your account back on to regain your progress. This way, you can now purchase Amazon Coins. So if you're a spender looking for ways to get more out of your money, consider Amazon Coins. This is a pretty useful feature that can help you if you're budgeting, so if you're interested in this, make sure to use the link in the video description as it supports this channel. Thanks again to Amazon Appstore for sponsoring this video, and speaking of which, let's get back to it. Ronso Warrior Kimahri's Trustmaster reward is closed with high attack and magic, and some defense and spirit. It also has a really simple passive that for some reason does not include attack. His Super Trustmaster reward is an accessory of better attack than magic. It has a passive that massively boosts jump damage, and a second that boosts their damage modifiers, making it extremely useful for any jumper. This last effect doesn't stack with itself though. On to his active abilities. Kimari has access to various blue magic. White Wind heals and regens. Bad Breath makes him stinky. Mighty Guard boosts your team's defensive stats by 250%, their fire, lightning, and water resistance by 80%, and gives them a 50% general mitigation buff. Stone Breath, I'm not quite sure how this one works actually. Violent Burst can be used once per battle. Seed Cannon Plus deals attack-based damage that chains a floating strike and is stronger against birds. Ronso Jump Plus imbues water onto Kimari, and then he'll leap into the air. He'll have to wait 2 turns before he lands though. Only those who try will boost Kimari's water and light damage by 30%, and strengthens the damage modifier of Ronso Jump Plus. Will become. What the heck is that sentence? Will become has the literal same first effect, and though the second effect is weaker, he'll also throw in a stored magic buff which isn't really meant for attack-based jump. Fire Breath deals fire magic damage that chains a bolting strike and lowers the enemy's fire resistance by 120%. Aqua Breath is the same thing but water. Thrust Kick is a kick that will fill Kimari's land burst gauge by a decent amount and restore 150 MP. Passives. With his Trustmaster reward or Super Trustmaster reward equipped, Kimari gets a big boost to his jump damage and equipment attack while carrying a single weapon. He has a great boost to his land burst damage, prefers to carry a single weapon, and meets half the Capture the Chain land boost. He also has 4 strong killers and has changed his normal attack to attack, which also boosts your team's water damage by 30%. At EX plus 2 he gets Proof of Mount Gagazet's Might, which is basically his version of Warring Spirit but also boosts its damage modifier, though only for a single turn. He also gets Omni Killer plus 2, power creeping the ones we saw last week by having larger numbers. At EX plus 3 he gets 500 attack and magic. He also has a decent elemental resistance foundation. Let's look at his Land Burst. It lowers the enemy's light resistance by 130%, and then deals light damage that scales off his magic stat. As a Super Land Burst damage dealer, Kimari has access to Magic Shift, which automatically boosts his magic by 250%, his Land Burst damage by 200%, and fills his Land Burst gauge when the Super Land Burst is ready to go. The Super Land Burst raises the light imperil to 135%, and deals more light damage. Let's rank Brave abilities. He has 1, it just raises bird damage. Time to make a damage rotation. On turn 1, cast only those who try. Will become Aqua Breath. On turn 2, cast Ronso Jump Plus. On turn 3, he's spinning in the air. Land on turn 4. Repeat the rotation from here. So, EX2. As a Super Land Burst damage dealer, Kimari automatically benefits from additional EX Awakenings. However, Kimari's Super Land Burst is magic oriented, while his best playstyle revolves around attack-based jumps. If you don't plan to use Kimari as a magic damage dealer at all, this Super Land Burst stuff isn't very useful. However, in exchange, his EX Awakenings do make up for this. The Warring Spirit part of EX plus 2 isn't that great, given it revolves around his magic Land Burst, but Omni Killer plus 2 is incredible. But what's really useful, his Super Trustmaster reward, purely for the sole reason that you can give it to other units. Or Kimari, he'll benefit too. Of course, you could just use a Super Trust Moogle to get it, which honestly might be the more economical play here. EX plus 3 is just stats, but that's also pretty expensive. So how good is Ronso Warrior Kimari? Well, he looks fairly flexible, but no, he's not. Like most Japan jumpers, he locks his element in before he jumps, and like most Japan Layer Burst damage dealers, he's made sure to lock that down as well. Even potentially worse is that it's an entirely different element, scales off a different stat, and benefits from different passives, and he's a Super Layer Burst unit with one equipment setup. Of course, you can always just ignore one side of this build, because you won't use it. This really could have been a brave shift. You'll likely stick with his physical jumper side because his kit is better suited to it, and even though he's missing an attack buff, you can easily get that from someone else. Now in terms of pure damage, Kimari is in a good position to benefit further from the right setup, where the Dragoons all sit around a table and pass around their sweaty clothes. Disgusting! But in turn they get to really boost their damage. Of course, without one of these units you likely don't have their equipment, meaning Kimari will have to face off against the other water damage dealers on his own, which isn't a great spot for him. If you really want to use him as a light magic damage dealer, you can actually make it work. Kimari's modifiers are pretty impressive, and he also has a stored magic buff to push it farther. His Layer Burst cost is relatively low, and there's a lot of strong supporters for light damage and Layer Burst as well. Of course, it also helps that there aren't as many strong competitors for light magic as there is for water physical. Ultimately, whether or not you choose between jumping or blasting will likely depend on the fight, but either way he's element locked. Overall, despite Kimari's shortcomings, he's in a decent position, falling on you, the player, to make him shine in whatever category he can. Or on the bench, while his pendant goes to someone else. He even has some support effects, like my Yunalesca's Trustmaster reward is an accessory of some magic and spirit, and a passive that nullifies the Seas and Stone. It's fine. Her Super Trustmaster reward boosts magic, though you probably get it for the evoke damage passives. I have 2 of them. Onto active abilities. Most of Yunalesca's abilities have received strong damage modifier buffs through the rest of her kit to make up for their age. Summoning Force deals evoke damage that might inflict stop. Summon the Dark deals dark magic damage that might inflict paralysis. Summon the Wind deals wind magic damage that Chains of Chaos Wave and might also inflict paralysis. Creature Head can't be used at the start of the battle. It deals magic damage that Chains of Chaos Wave awaken, and barely strengthens the damage modifier of Transforced, Aeonian Darkness, and Aeonian Wind. Transpirit will use 3 Esper Orbs to heal a portion of your team's HP and MP. Prayer of Salvation will boost your team's Wind and Dark resistance by 100%, and grants them immunity to most status ailments. Transforce costs 2 Esper Orbs per use, and deals evoke damage that Chains of Chaos Wave awaken. Aeonian Darkness inflicts a 120% Dark Imperil, and then deals dark magic damage that Chains of Chaos Wave awaken and gets stronger with each use. Aeonian Wind is the same, but wind. Deceptive Light boosts Yunalesca's magic by 250%, and shrivens the damage modifier of Aeonian Darkness and Wind. Yevon's Protection boosts Yunalesca's magic and spirit by 250%, raises the damage modifier of Transforce, and on the next turn, automatically fills the Esper gauge way past the max, and on the turn after that, does it again. Fill Layer Burst is Fill Layer Burst. I'm learning now. It is better for you to die in hope. Cannot be used at the start of the battle. It boosts Yunalesca's dark damage by 30%, fills her Layer Burst gauge, and shrivens the damage modifier of her Evoke Layer Burst. Which is only her Super Layer Burst, by the way. Then to Live in Despair, also can't be set at the start of the battle. It gives Yunalesca a 300% stored magic buff. Passives. With her Trustmaster reward or Super Trustmaster reward equipped, Yunalesca gets to triple cast. She hasn't received any killers. Even Seymour got killers. But she did get some booster evoke damage, Layer Burst damage, and Layer Burst regen. She prefers to dual wield. Oh no, she doesn't. She prefers to carry a single weapon, meaning half the Capture the Chain Layer boost. She also has a Neo Brave ability, False Teachings, massively boosting her stats, damage modifiers, and giving her another equipment stat boost. At EX plus 2 she gets Warring Spirit. At EX plus 3 she gets 500 magic and spirit. Her elemental resistance is also pretty good. Sure, light is at nothing, but look at Dark and Wind. Let's look at her Layer Burst. It has a good chance of not working, but it does instead deal a large amount of magic damage that's locked to no element, and then raises the damage modifiers of her abilities. As a super limit burst damage dealer, Yunalesca has access to Magic Shift, which automatically boosts her magic by 250%, her limit burst damage by 200%, and fills her limit burst gauge when the super limit burst is ready to go. The super limit burst deals non-elemental evoke damage that scales off both her magic and spirit stats. Let's rank Brave abilities. She has 1, but False Teachings is pretty important to raise the damage modifiers of her otherwise bad abilities. Time to make a downward rotation. I'll assume you've got her Trustmaster reward or Super Trustmaster reward equipped. On turn 1, cast Deceptive Light, fill Limit Burst, and Transforce. If you don't have any Esper Orbs, use Aeonian Darkness. On turn 2, use her Limit Burst. On turn 3, cast as many Transforces as you can, replacing them with Aeonian Darkness if that's not possible. On turn 4, cast Yevon's Protection. It is better for you to die in hope than to live in despair. On turn 5, use her Super Limit Burst. On turn 6, cast Deceptive Light, Creature Head, and Transforce, and go from there, spamming Transforce unless her Limit Bursts are ready. So, EX2? As a Super Limit Burst damage dealer, Unalaska automatically benefits from additional EX Awakenings. Warring Spirit is pretty useful, given her Limit Burst empowers the damage modifiers for her abilities farther, while EX plus 3 is more stats. So how good is Yunalesca? Well, unfortunately, not very good. As a damage dealer, her best moves are element locked to no element at all, and though her damage modifiers are relatively high in an attempt to compensate, elements are such a big part of damage in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius that it is incredibly hard to bridge that gap. It is better to be element locked to any element than it is to none at all. When it comes to building her, you have to make sure to go as far as you can with evoke damage, limit burst damage, and magic and spirit, because Yunalesca's damage uses both in their calculations. Or you cannot. Poppy's Trustmaster reward boosts Spirit, has a small limit burst regen, and boosts Spirit more if your unit's holding a staff. It also helps me stay positive throughout this video. Her Super Trustmaster reward is a multi-element staff that deals all damage but dark, and has a decent magic and spirit stat. It also has a passive that automatically boosts your unit's water, wind, and light damage by 10%, which honestly isn't that impressive. However, being a multi-element weapon, I have used it when I needed to build short chains for Golden Riser counterchaining. Onto her active abilities. Feeling Divides is only unlocked at EX plus 3, and you have to wait before you can even use it. Why even lock it behind EX Awakenings? Regardless, the ability boosts your team's stats by 350%, and their limit burst damage by 250%. Why is there even a delay? Pastel Wall, Physical, gives your team a weak physical mitigation buff and a weak HP barrier, but if you use it after Poppy's Feeling Inspired, it becomes okay. Magic is the same but magic. Paint Rush deals flexible magic damage that Chains of Chaos Wave Awaken and scales off her spirit. Paint Slap is the same but Chains of Bolting Strike. Yay! Is a free ability to restore a bit of MP, boosts your team's limit burst gauges, and Poppy hurts herself with her positivity. Using it after she's feeling inspired increases the MP cost, limit burst fail, and hurts herself even more. Flood of Passion's first effect is pretty bad, so you'll likely be using it for the 75% lightning, earth, and dark resistance or the break resistance effect. If she's feeling inspired, then it also removes breaks, the stat buff is still bad, and the elemental resistance shoots up to 100%. Blue color scheme imbues water onto your team, and if you use it after she's feeling inspired, wow, she'll also boost water damage by 10%. Green color scheme is the same but green. White color scheme is the same but white. Killer Art Supplies, Plants, gives your team a double killer against plants and a very weak mitigation buff against said species. After being inspired, it's buffed to a Killer Plus, which isn't that much better and neither is the mitigation. Killer Art Supplies, Stone, is the same but stone. Blot Out is a total dispel on your enemies and your team. I Feel Inspired makes Poppy inspired. The other effects aren't that great. I can keep going. We'll give one ally a full re-raise, a 90% general mitigation buff, and boost their elemental resistance by 80%. It's a pretty strong effect, but only lasts a single turn and suffers from an 8-turn cooldown. Graffiti Trick boosts your team's stats by 240% and gives them a 40% general mitigation buff. Very cool balance. No Negative Nancy's boosts your team's limit burst gauge fill rate by 200%, their limit burst gauge by a pretty decent amount, their limit burst damage by a not so decent amount, and then she stabs herself with her paintbrush. Passion Boost will raise the damage modifier of Aeroga, Waterga, and Banishga for your team. It's better when you awaken it. Passives. With her Trustmaster reward or Super Trustmaster reward equipped, Poppy gets stats and a small booster limit burst gauge fill rate. She has gained various passives, but not a lot of them are really special, but Preemptive Boost All does automatically give your team a super limit burst stat buff. Her normal attack has also been changed to fill your team's limit burst gauges by a small amount. At EX plus 2, she gets Warring Spirit. Let's look at her Layup Burst. It boosts your team's stats by 250%, their water, wind, and light damage by 15%, and lowers your enemy's water, wind, and light resistance by 120%. Time to change forms. Poppy's Brave Shift has a 2-turn duration and a 4-turn cooldown. On to her active abilities. Wind Emotion will boost one ally's wind damage by a whopping 60%. Water Emotion is the same but water, and Light Emotion is the same but light. Oh, we're done. Passives. In this form, she's gained a bit of evasion because she's now sitting down, and reduces her MP because she's sitting in a briefcase. Her normal attack will now boost all elemental damage by 15%, which, why would you use this? She's also gained a better elemental resistance spread. Let's look at her Happy Painter in the house! It boosts your team's stats by 300%, their Layup Burst damage by 250%, and their water, wind, and light damage by 35%. Let's rank Brave abilities. She has 1, but unfortunately no one really prioritizes these black magic spells. So, EX2. Warring Spirit isn't impressive for her base form given its fairly average stat boost. It's better in her Brave Shift, given there's not too much to do there after her powerful buff. EX plus 3 is honestly a lot for something like this, so I really don't recommend chasing it. So how good is Poppy? In terms of support, her base form has gained 1 Neo tool in boosting the damage modifiers of 3 specific magic spells, and none of them are particularly strong at the moment. Now Lusha did boost Stonga, so maybe there's hope for these 3, but at the moment there's not much to be positive about here. As for the rest of her abilities, if you haven't been using her 7-star form, you won't be using them now. Some of her cooldown abilities are strong, but suffer from their cooldowns, while everything else is just kind of subpar. However, her Brave Shift definitely makes up for this, featuring 3 powerful single-target amplification buffs, making her the best supporter for water, wind, and light. The one downside is her cooldown. No, not her abilities, her Brave Shift. You only get to spend 2 turns in this form, which, okay, there's nothing to do here anyways, but then you have to spend 4 turns in her base form, which far exceeds the effect duration of her buffs. It's a pretty dismal drawback for such a powerful supporter, and not that great a look when it might so easily be power crap. You could try to accelerate it with Raka, but bringing 2 support units is likely stretching it. Still, numbers are everything, and for the time being, Poppy reigns supreme. Thanks for watching, and if you liked this video, leave a like and subscribe. Comment below if you summon Kimari, how far you can take Yunalesca, and how far you can take Poppy. I've got Yunalesca to EX plus 3, my Poppy's at EX plus 1, and I don't plan on chasing Kimari. I'll definitely chuck a Super Trust Mugo at him though.